The United States in 2023 has become a place in crisis. Citizens and immigrants alike are finding out just how dead the American dream really is. The increased cost of living combined with the massive uptick in immigration has led to many people in America living paycheck to paycheck with no hope of retirement. Credit card and household debt are at record highs, and the middle class can't even afford childcare services. In this video, we're going to be looking at how these increasing number of problems are killing the American dream. Starting off with childcare, the sector faces large shortages in workers, and as a result, prices are at a premium. The problems were further worsened by the COVID pandemic, as many childcare health centers could not afford to stay open. The ones who could did so by shooting prices up. As it stands, childcare services is beyond the reach of the middle class. Statistics shows that about 67% of parents spend more than 20% of their household income on childcare service. A huge problem when you consider that the federal government define affordable childcare as 7% or less of parents' annual household income. The average cost of providing health care for infants currently stands at $1,200 per month. President Biden has signed an executive order to help bring back some sanity to the prices, but it's a far cry from the $220 billion he promised would be available for childcare services at the start of his term. And it's not like health care for adults is in any better shape. For a family of 4, annual health care bills have increased from $28,300 to $31,065 in 2023. For individuals, the costs rise from $6,770 in 2021, a COVID-hit year by the way, to $7,200 in 2023, a 12% increase. The healthcare cost is also projected to increase by 5.6% between 2022 and 2023, with 40% of American adults carrying one form of medical debt or another. That's not even including the other factors crippling the healthcare system in 2023, like the dwindling labor market, the high inflation rates, the increase in labor costs, and the lack of facilities in certain states. One of the most crippling truths about the state of the American dream is that students in America are doomed to live their entire lives paying back one loan debt or another. In 2023, America's student loan balance stands at a staggering $1.7 trillion. That's up 1.25% from the second quarter of 2022. The stats show that in the academic session alone, students and parents borrowed about $95 billion. President Biden, earlier in the year, attempted to shrink the loan amount with his loan forgiveness plan, but it was shut off by the Senate. The new program will see an estimated $9 billion in loan debt automatically forgiven, but that's peanuts compared to the over $430 billion Biden's flawed plan would have lifted off the bill. And student loans are a big issue in the U.S. 55% of graduates from private colleges leave school with loan debts, and 53% of public college graduates leave with debt. And you know what? The worst of it is yet to come for those graduates. In addition to the student loan debts, they can now also join the rest of the country in the credit card fiasco. In the second quarter of 2023, the nationwide credit card debt rose to over $1 trillion, almost $100 billion more than the pre-COVID amount. What's even more scary is that, according to Forbes, whenever the Federal Reserves increase interest rates to fight inflation, credit card interest rates goes up in response. In 2023, there were more than 578 million credit card accounts in America, a 5.2% increase from 2022. The way things are going, more accounts means more debt basically. The spike in interest rates is a move carried out to fight inflation and the relentless increase in the cost of living. Everything from food to education to groceries to service bills are seeing significant spikes recently. Food prices have been predicted to grow in 2023. The Consumer Price Index for all food items since August 2023 alone, and has gone up 4.3% since August 2022. The overall Consumer Price Index for all commodities rose by double the month-on-month rate from 2022 to 2023, marking the economy-wide inflation. The current inflation in America also stands substantially above the average. And you know, when that number goes up, everything else goes up as well. Even going to school is getting more expensive. The average tuition and fees at public colleges rose by 1.4% for out-of-state schoolers and 2% for in-state schoolers in 2023. whilst at private institutions, the average went up by nearly 5%. To demonstrate the insanity of those numbers, it would take the average American, while saving $5,000 per year, about 75 years of savings to send one child to a top-rated U.S. college. 75 years. It's a bit much expecting people to afford college when some of them can't even get a roof over their heads. Moving on the list, we got the alarming report that the Department of Housing and Urban Development recorded over 582,000 homeless Americans in 2022, an increase of about 2,000 from 2020. It's especially a rampant problem in places like California and New York. That's because home ownership is increasingly moving out of reach for many citizens. As at June 2023, the average cost of an existing home was $410,000, just a few $1,000s away from the all-time record high after a decade of year-on-year increase. That's why I kindly invite you to watch The Migrant Crisis in New York, where we go deep down on the most recent events destroying New York City. And therein lies the problem, folks. The American workforce is in a weird place, and considering the fact that the American dream sells the U.S. as the land of opportunities, you would think the middle-class worker would have more of a control over his future and his standard of living. However, it's that lack of control that is precisely killing the American dream. About 108 million Americans are stuck in a limbo in between poverty and security, earning around $55,000 annually. More than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, which includes consumers earning less than $50,000 a month and 62% of consumers earning between $10,000 and $50,000 a month. All of that stems from the stagnant minimum wage structure in America. The federal-approved minimum wage stands at $7.25 and has been that way since 2009. Although certain states do set their own bar higher and there is a plan to increase the federal minimum wage, the fact remains that it is not growing anywhere near fast enough to account for the constant inflation that the American worker faces every day. A lot of them cannot even start up any sort of emergency savings. They've got to eat now, never mind the future. According to a survey, only 9% of Americans had 7 months' worth of emergency savings they could tap into for a rainy day. Only 14% even had up to 3 months' worth of savings, with the vast majority living paycheck to paycheck. Upon further investigation, although some people may have 7+ months' worth of savings, barely any of those reserves could carry as little as 3 months of expenses. 57% of American adults cannot afford a $1,000 emergency expense, and less than half of the population have enough to weather a 3-month storm. And if you're enjoying the video, or you know more about the state of middle-class workers in America, then feel free to leave a comment below telling us what you think. These are really scary numbers. They basically indicates that if someone was to stop working, within 3 months they'd be 100% broke. And with that being the case, it's no wonder why retirement is a huge problem area of the American dream. Ordinarily, after spending a large portion of your life working 8 to 5, you'd expect to be able to at least save enough to retire into comfort. But no, given the current cost of living and the inflation rates and the wage structure and the housing bubble, it's extremely unlikely that a person saves enough money to be able to retire comfortably. That's despite the fact that in 2023, the government will distribute over $1 trillion in Social Security benefits, and an average of 67 million people will receive said benefits. Still, about 40% working Americans say they are worried about retirement, and only 30% of people aged 18-29 feel they are on track with savings to be able to retire properly. So, there you have it, amazing audience. The American dream has been in serious warning for decades now, but in current day, 2023, it has never looked more dead. Workers can barely find meaningful jobs with meaningful pay, and they can almost not afford to pay for anything, which is conclusive proof that if the government and people in power don't do enough to turn this situation around, then all of this could easily become 10 times worse.